Well, we're now being joined by our analyst, Dr. Constance Shakeup, for analysis of this big story. Good morning, Constance.
Good morning, Adesua.
I mean, it finally happened, but it does look like the suspense factor was taken away. But what do you make of the entire rejigging, reassigning, the dismissal, and the new faces?
That's why I think the most striking thing about this cabinet reshuffle is that the key ministers and ministries relating to the economy were left untouched. It's a profound message from the president to say that he is satisfied with the direction of the economy. And this is happening within an environment where people feel the economy is tanking, or to put it mildly, that it is not recovering sufficiently enough to make a dent on growth and poverty reduction. And so for those that were hoping for a seismic shift on the economic front, they might have to wait a little bit and they might be disappointed. And which ministries are we talking about? We're talking about the Minister for Finance and the Coordinating Minister for the Economy, Minister for Budget and Economic Planning. There's also Minister for Blue and Marine Economy. There is Minister of Power, which is key to the economy. There's also Minister of Art, Culture, and the Creative Economy in a way. And then there was a little bit of change in the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment that is very much related to the economy. You have a new person coming on board, Dr. Jumoke Oduwole. She has been at the Presidential Enabling Business Environment Council. For many years, she worked under President Muhammadu Buhari, and then she was moved over to the current government. So she is in a familiar terrain. So this make up the bulk of the economic front of the country. The president is essentially saying that he's happy with what is going on. The policies that have been implemented so far will then have to wait and see whether there is any change at all going forward.
Well, we talk about 35% affirmative for women, which Nigeria is nowhere near. And from what I noticed, 2 women left. And then it looks like there was no balance.
3 women were returned.
3 women were returned. Okay, so it looks like there's a balance. Well, you didn't mention security. Security is not getting any better. And you need an atmosphere of peace, even to attract foreign FDI, foreign investment. So that area wasn't touched. And one wonders really, is this mere treating things on the surface? How far-reaching did this change go? Is it addressing the problems of Nigerians, particularly with a high cost of living? Yes, you mentioned poverty, Dr. Constance.
Yes, the security part of the economy or the country is key. And as you have mentioned, he did not touch that. It also means that he is delighted or satisfied with what is going on in that part of the country. So what is also important is that when you mentioned about women, he did take off some women and also replaced some. For instance, we have Bianca Ojukwu, who was previously an ambassador to Ghana and then to Spain. She was also a presidential advisor under President Goodluck Jonathan. Now she's been made the Minister of State for Foreign Affairs. Again, that's a familiar terrain. She's been there for quite a while. We also have other ministers, which some might have some issues with. We have Idi Maiha, that's the Minister for Livestock Development. Questions have been asked on why we have an entire ministry dedicated to livestock development when we also have an entire Ministry of Agriculture. We've mentioned Dr. Jumoke Oduwole, which is very important. There's Muhammad Dingyadi, who is the Minister of Labor and Employment, who will have his work cut out for him because of the unrest in labor, poor wages, and civil servants not going to work because there's high transport costs. They have to balance that out. So that one has a lot of work to do. You also have, for instance, the Ministry of Niger Delta, which is now becoming the Regional Development Ministry. That's also interesting. It means that we now oversee all the development commissions. We know there are new development commissions. I think what will happen is that every region of the country will now have a development commission. Some would say we are regionalizing, whatever that means. Well, the point is that this is a new change, and we will see how that goes. For those that were sacked, we have a Minister of Women Affairs, Uju Kennedy Ohanenye. She's someone who was seen as a little bit rambunctious. Her approach and demeanor rattled, a few people. So she has been let go. There's Lola Adejohn, Minister of Tourism. There wasn't much happening from that front. You have Professor Tahir Maman. For that man, I think what happened was that, things that were not necessarily overshadowed his tenure. For instance, the insistence that one has to be 18 in order to gain admission into university. There were bigger issues facing tertiary institutions in Nigeria, and that sort of overshadowed his time there. There are others, but so far we will see what happens. We'll have to give them time to readjust and see whether we'll see a big change coming from this set of new ministers. Definitely, Dr. Ikoku. When the conversation of cabinet reshuffle also comes the conversation of having a leaner government, and we just played that interview earlier with the presidential spokesperson on information and strategy talking to Charles on Arise Prime Time, and Charles was basically asking him, look, Nigerians have been talking about having a leaner government, reducing government spending. You're taking out 5 people and then you have 7 people. And also the talk about, they were also discussing the criteria for this rejigging, the criteria for this discharge. And Mr. Bayo Nanuga said, look, it's not more of the president's expectation, it's more of the public's expectation. If you look at public expectation, that maybe the president also should have rejigged Ministry of Petroleum. What's your sense? There are so many ministries that a lot of people thought should have been touched. Yeah, petroleum is there, but he didn't. Again, it sends a message that the president is comfortable with what is going on so far. And let me quote what Bayo Nanuga said specifically. He said the reason why this cabinet reshuffle happened is that they want to reinvigorate the administration's capacity for optimal efficiency, pursuant of his commitment to deliver on his promises to Nigerians. That is President Bola Tinubu's promises to Nigerians. It is the prerogative of the president to hire and to sack. It is also his prerogative to decide how many people he wants in his cabinet. Yes, there is that conversation that it should be pruned down. At the same time, the president has decided that he wants to have this number of ministers. He thinks this will help him to achieve the mission and the vision that he has for Nigerians. At the end of the day, Nigerians will have to judge him based on the delivery and the results that his team is able to offer to Nigerians. I think that's the most important thing. Whether it's 30 people, whether it's 25 people, at the end of the day, the bottom line is what are the results that they will be delivering from Nigerians. And I think that's what we'll be looking forward in the months ahead.
Very well said. And just to say that the number of ministers did not increase, they still remain 48. You recall that 2 positions had been left vacant, that of Betta Edu and Simon Lalong. So he sacked or dismissed 5, as they're saying, and he appointed 7 pending Senate nomination, meaning that 5 additional plus the 2 vacant ones, so they still remain the same number, just to put that out. But Dr. Ikoku, before we let you go, story would like to get your input on this morning. A tragic one indeed. A 14-year-old Florida boy has killed himself after a lifelike Game of Thrones chatbot he had been messaging for months on an artificial intelligence app sent him an eerie message telling him to come home to her. A new lawsuit filed by his grief-stricken mom claims. Well, according to court papers filed, Sewell Setzer III committed suicide at his Orlando home in February after becoming obsessed with allegedly falling in love with the chat box on Character.ai, a role-playing app that lets users engage with AI-generated characters the ninth grader had been relentlessly engaging with the bot Danny, named after HBO fantasy series Daenerys Targaryen character, in the months before his death, including several chats that were sexually charged in nature and others where he expressed suicidal thoughts. That's according to the suit. So, Dr. Ikoku, I mean, this is scary. AI has come to stay, but are we in danger?
We seem to be in danger this way. I mean, this story mirrors some of the dangers associated with AI and social media in general. It also highlights the fact that these people are impressionable. That boy was 14 years old. His brain is still developing, and so he probably believed that that was real, and so he was responding to a machine, an object, through the machine that he thought was speaking to him in real life. I think it also highlights the responsibilities of companies. I hear that his parents have sued the company. At the same time, it shows us that parents also have to be highly responsible. It is more complex and difficult to raise children in today's world, where there is a lot of distraction on the part of the children and also on the part of the parents, who are on the run all the time, pursuing their careers in order to make ends meet. There is blame to go around, but the point is that this is an example of our world today, and it will probably get worse as AI develops further. But it also might have to call on these companies to make sure that they are careful when it comes to the kind of programs and the software and that they put out there for children to engage with. Again, responsibility of parents to make sure that their words are not exposed early enough to all that is going on in social media and on the World Wide Web.
Yeah, two things there, very important. The fact that the parents have taken this to court is interesting. But then secondly, at the time, Facebook was tasked on making sure that people don't take advantage of children on the what do you call it? Sorry?
On the platform?
Facebook platform? On the platform. Generally, what do you call it?
Social media?
Social media, yeah. But then interestingly, the parents noticed changes in this boy. He was now beginning to behave odd. His grades were going down. So very important for parents. You must not allow your children do things, allow them do things that they shouldn't do. I want you to look at that.
I think just to add to that, so we can just wrap it up. I think another angle to the story is how the 14-year-old boy killed himself. He shot himself with his stepfather's gun. So this is another conversation of access to firearms for minors, especially in the U.S. What are your thoughts on that? Indeed,
Nkechi, when it comes to firearms and the accessibility, if that child was able to easily find that firearm at home, that means it wasn't properly kept or stored or concealed, which again is an indictment on the parents. But before you even get there, when you talk about children these days, you see that kids as young as 2, 3 are left with phones to engage an entire day, and that leads to obsession and addiction to an instrument or a machine that has a lot of impact and effect on their lives, especially, as I said earlier, their brains are developing. This is the world that we live in today. I think in future we are going to see more lawsuits. We are going to see more pressure on companies to do better, and everybody generally. I think that when you look at it in total, everybody has a responsibility in this world that we live today. It's changing.
Very, very dangerous trends playing out here.
Okay, we'll see you very soon for the newspaper review. Dr. Constance Ikoku, thank you so much. Definitely.